Should medical students, or in fact, students in general, hustle? That's the question for today. You're joined by myself, Ams Chowdhury, and Abdul Rayed. We're both junior doctors and the co-founder of Peerr. All right, so Abdul, let's start off with what even is hustling? When people hear, he's got a side hustle, he's got a hustle, or he's a hustler. What does that word mean?
I think side hustles, hustling, normally it's all to do with someone that's got this business, this thing they do on the side, and they make a bit of money from it. It's that side hustle. It's that thing you do on the side. It's not your day job. It's not your 9 to 5. It's not what you're studying at university or whatever. It's the side hustle. It's the thing you do on the side that makes a bit of money and cash. Long story short, right?
Does it have to make money, your hustle?
To be fair, in this day and age, the way things are going, not all side hustles need to make money. To be fair, some people call their passions and their hobbies a side hustle. It's a thing I do on the side. It's a bit of hustling. And people do it not to necessarily make money. They do it because they enjoy it. You know, wheeler dealers, there are people that buy stuff, sell it. Even though they might not make a big profit or don't even care about making any profit, they just love it. People love deals. People love negotiating, right? Typically, side hustles are obviously seen as doing something, building a product, service, or whatever may be attached to some sort of monetary income, right? Question is, do you think students should have a side hustle?
So I've been on both ends of the spectrums. I've not hustled and I've hustled. Okay. And then I'll end with something. I've got a unique I think I've got a unique point of view on the word hustling as well as a medical student. Okay. So as a med student, obviously early days, I had no side hustle. I wasn't doing no social media content creation. I wasn't doing anything else. It was all about medicine. It was all about studying. It was all about getting the grades. It was all about publishing, presenting, etc. That was my main game. And then I think as I went through med school, suddenly different things came into the picture, and now I had side hustles. When I look back, if you said to me, where did I gain the most skills? Where did I apply the most skills? Where did I differentiate myself from? In the earlier days when I had no side hustle, I was only differentiated by grades, right? So I was differentiated on what decile were you in, how many publications do you have, how many presentations do you have. They were the things that would differentiate me. Side hustling is what then differentiated me in terms of what can I create, how do I present, can I speak, can I communicate, can I negotiate, can I reach out to someone I've never met before, cold email, and manage to form some sort of relationship, and then negotiate some sort of deal with a business, with a society or something like that. So I think off of that, I would say the answer to the question is, I think medical students should hustle. All right. How much, in what capacity, that can be debated, but should they hustle? I think yes. What about you?
100%. Before that, what was your first hustle? Your journey to hustling or side hustle is very different. But what was your first hustle?
So my hustling at first, I would say, didn't have the element of the business model to it, right? I learned later on that projects, even charities, right? I learned that you're naive if you think things can run without some sort of financial model, right? A charity requires it. If you want to do any sort of project, it requires a financial stream, right? So I was very naive to think that wouldn't be needed. So I had loads of side hustles, lots of side projects where it involved lots of community work. It often involved education. It often involved going back to sort of my background and giving them access into courses, whether it was medicine, dentistry, engineering, anything at university. Things that they thought that they couldn't do, I would try to open those doors up. So we had a project called Inspire a Million, where the goal was I just basically tally up, and the goal was to try and inspire 1 million people to follow their dreams, essentially. The biggest project I had was the School of Wealthy Minds. Essentially, that was myself and then me essentially liaising, bringing in barristers, bringing in engineers, teachers, etc. to talk about what they do, and to not just talk. I realized that inspiration was one side of the coin, giving them the energy, the drive, and the other side was the know-how. There was a lack of information. So when I was in med school, if you said I want to be a doctor, the question was how. I didn't know you had to do the UK CAT, the BMAT. I didn't know there was an interview process. I didn't know that these SJT things would come up. I didn't know that in the interview they'd be putting a patient graph in front of you and say, interpret that. So I think that was my main hustle. But it wasn't a hustle. For me, it was a passion project.
It was a passion project. Fine. Did you do any tuition on the side? Did you ever tutor kids for money?
As in earning money?
Yeah.
You know what? My thing was I never worked for money in the sense that I just cut my costs. I was that type of person. Rather than me needing luxury, I just cut down on it. So, for example, I didn't go to university by tube. If I went by tube, it'd be a 15-minute journey. I took the bus. But that saved me over $1,000 a year. Okay?
Crazy.
Do you see the difference? It was time, and you could argue, well, your time is worth more. It's more valuable, and you could have done some more things in that time and had that luxury. I didn't want that luxury, and I just cut out the cost. It meant I didn't have to work. Yeah. And then I, obviously, from my background, I was eligible for a couple of grants, and then I entered essay competitions. I leveraged what things I knew how to do. So essay competitions and things I entered, I won a couple of hundred here and there always. So they were the things I did. I never personally had a stream of income at medical school. I had no steady income. What about you?
I think the reason I asked that is I feel like a lot of people hustle or have side hustles very early on, but they don't realize that it is a side hustle or it qualifies or classifies as a side hustle, right? And I think the discussion that I want to have today with you is basically kind of not talking too much on the money side of things, but side hustle, side projects, the hustle, right? Obviously for me, I was side hustling way before I even got into medical school. One of the first few things I did was kind of, jailbreaking iPhones for other people that used to pay me £20 so they can download an app for free, which was £70, right? So that type of side hustle.
Did you know you was your goal to flip it though?
No, exactly. At that time, this is what I'm saying is, I didn't know it was a side hustle. Looking back, it is a side hustle now. I didn't do it for the money either. It was, oh crap, this is quite fun. I know how to do something. I know how to get something someone else wants very cheaply. And you know that feeling like, oh, this little kid, 17 years old, and these are grown adults. He's hooking us up. He's sorting something out. You know that feeling?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Money. I made £20. I could have made a lot more money from that, right? And I remember I did 10 phones and I made £200, right? And I don't know what happened with the money, right? And then I went on to do like a tuition school. Didn't know nothing about business, overpriced it, was crazy, everything fell apart, right? So I can see looking back that there were moments of side hustling. Obviously went into medical school, stopped the side hustles because I thought I need to revise, be a good doctor, right? And then started all of this stuff later towards the end. But I think what I want people to know or learn from watching this video is it doesn't matter if it's a side hustle where you're making money or no money, or if it's a side project. I see them as the same thing. And the reason why I see them as the same thing is I'm more interested about skill acquisition you get from the side hustle and the side project. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
So I think, and I'm a big believer that skill acquisition outside of the general course, the books, whatever, is what future-proofs you in the sense of your career, your relationship, your ability to lead. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
What are your thoughts on that? So side hustle, obviously, let's put it out there and we don't need to talk about it anymore, is you earn income. You can use that income to pay off debt. It pays for the coffee. It pays for tuition fees. You can invest it. You can grow your wealth, right? Everyone knows that side hustle, isn't it? Put that aside. What do you think of the other things that come with the side hustle?
That is basically the reason why the answer is you should side hustle. Right, skill.
It's not for the money.
It's not for the money. It's not for. I mean, obviously, we're saying this now.
Let's say the money is a secondary, and you make a bit of money, whatever. You're not making life-changing money.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think first, obviously, we have to establish that you're talking from a privileged point of view. So we had a couple of friends, for example, at med school. They couldn't afford to do passion projects and things because they had to find a way to get money, right? So they had a job, and they'd be running from med school straight into their job because it's unfortunate for their circumstances, right? So we're talking for if you have it as an option, let's say, right? Should you have the option to side hustle? And skill acquisition is the main thing because, again, what you're doing is at that stage of life, right? You've got minimum responsibilities in the sense that not many people have, not everyone has kids and has a massive rent, a mortgage, and is responsible for loads of dependents around them. Obviously people are, and it's a different case for them. But the people who don't, I think you're choosing an investment into yourself, into being able to do so many different things. And I think that's more valuable. For example, I regret taking summer jobs. Like, I didn't need to. I regret, and I wish I was creating or learning or reading into this entrepreneurship things and all these other things that are going on now. So I wish I actually didn't work for the hourly pay. I think I would have made better investment choices then that would have paid dividends now, right? So, and then skill acquisition, what are they? So remember, hustling doesn't have to be something you give birth to from scratch, right? You don't have to create a company. You don't have to create this whole new campaign and project and charity. You being a society president or a treasury or whatever, you are now side hustling. Yeah. You have a job to now do different things that pull you away from, what do you call it, medicine. Yeah. From you're not learning. You're not sitting there annotating diagrams, learning anatomy and things. You're now learning how to communicate. You're now learning how to lead a team, how to negotiate. You're learning about design. You're learning about workflows. For example, you do a campaign, it doesn't work. Suddenly you have to know and now go and assess it as to why didn't it work? Oh, it's the way that we actually presented it to the people. They didn't even understand it. Similarly, if you're designing tech things, right? It's the same thing. You design something, you put a big button that says something, you put it in front of a user and just watch them. And they're like, so how do I register? And you're like, but can you not see this? You haven't made it clear. And you're learning now design. You're learning from feedback loops. And I see it on Twitter a lot. A lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of startup founders who are very, very successful, they say they're of the thought and the opinion, learn by doing, not just theory. Medical school and everything is a lot of theory. You're learning a lot of theory. And when you're side hustling, I feel like you're doing.
It's the same thing though. You know, when you got a side hustle, side project, you learn by doing, right? You learn all the skills you mentioned, right? Medicine is the same thing. Really, truly, where does the most of the learning happen? When you're in your job, right? Once you graduate, once you're in F1, that's when the bulk, 90% of the learning as a junior doctor happens while you're in there doing things. And I think side hustling is the same thing. And I think when we say side hustle, it's not just a side hustle where you can earn income, passive income, whatever. It also includes projects, charities, societies. And like you said, the biggest investment from your summer job, what you've learned is investing in yourself, because the benefits you can reap, or the dividends, if you want to call it, is so much greater. What did you gain from spending that summer working a standard job than if you were like started a YouTube channel or put content creation and you continue doing that each summer? After 5 summers, where would you be now? You might not even, this is the second question, you might not even be an F1, you might not go into junior doctor, right? Same as Ali Abdal, right?
Exactly. Do you know what one skill, I wish I spent a couple of summers learning this, and it's coding. Yeah. I feel like I could have spent those summers, because I had hours on hours on hours where I did nothing, or I was working, taking photos at the London Eye in the scorching heat. I could have been learning code, and I'll be proficient in code, I think. So that's one of my regrets. I said I never had any regrets before, but you know what I do? I regret that. Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting the way life.
You worked a lot for a company for doing a lot of their finance work, right? So because you obviously had a bit of pressure to make sure you earn some money and stuff. But would you say that working gave you certain skills and assets that your side hustles didn't do?
So in a funny way, in our previous video we talked about your personal brand was academia, research, innovation, driving that forward, right? And you got that role. The role I had at Mar was treasurer, running the finances. And the reason why I got that role was obviously because I was working at the Welsh Centre for many years running finances as an 18-year-old. I don't know how I got the job as an 18-year-old. And that kind of helped me now. And it also helps with our finances and looking at the numbers and stuff like that, which has helped. So I don't know if you can classify a part-time job as a side hustle. Can you? It depends what job it is, I guess.
Depends on what job it is and what it's teaching you and for what purpose.
The job I had, I feel like I learned skills that I would have also learned from a side hustle only because the job I managed to get at that age had a very steep learning curve, and it had skills that are directly relatable to running a charity, to running a business startup, right? if that makes sense from a finance point of view. If it was like a retail shop or customer service, then maybe not.
Yeah, I think when people use the word, when people apply the word hustle, I don't think they refer to it when you've got a job. So
So let's make a decision. Ignore our example. That's a bad example. Side hustle is basically something that isn't a job, and I think it's maybe when you don't have a boss.
Yeah, you do it out your own self. Yeah,
You do it out your own accord, and it's like a variety of things. And it's, do you know what? It is a buzzword. I'm not gonna lie. Everyone's like, "What's your side hustle? I got this side hustle going. I got this side hustle." They may not necessarily be profitable, maybe making any money or whatever. But I think the skill acquisition they learn from it, communicating, negotiating, marketing, selling. When you're bootstrapping a company, you're thinking of innovative ways of how do I get this product or service in front of people's eyes, right?
So here's a question for you now. So I read this on Twitter once, and it got maybe a little bit under my skin as well. So there's a lot of, so the word hustle is a buzzword, but there's also a little bit of an anti. Why are you hustling for? Don't hustle. You don't have to hustle. I get it. Not everyone has to hustle. Sometimes you don't need to. You can enjoy doing what you do. But you know the people that do hustle, they're always on the go. They're always doing something. They're always writing, sending out newsletters, etc., etc. They're always doing something. They get a little bit of hate, I notice. There is a corner of people that hate them. Maybe hate's a strong word, but are basically anti. Or they're like, why is this guy? He's such a sad person for hustling. Have you seen that?
I don't think I've come across it, but I know what you're talking about. I wouldn't say it's hate. Why is it? It's like side hustles. Like, why are you doing a side hustle? What's the point? Yeah. You're not making any.
It usually comes from someone who's not hustling. So I've noticed that it usually comes from someone who's not hustling.
But my theory is, let me tell you, this is my theory. I think, despite us saying everyone should go and have a side hustle, I know a lot of people won't. That's a given. That's a given, and that's fine. That's a given, and I'm all up for it. If you don't need side hustle, fair enough. But I at the same time know, even if you're wealthy, even if you come from a privileged background, if you're a hustler, you still have a side hustle, even if it's got nothing to do with the money. Because when you hustle, when you have a side hustle, there's something more about it than the money, than the recognition, than the growth. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like you have to have a certain personality trait. You have to be of a certain mindset to go and hustle. Because hustling is hard. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Even if you're hustling, even if your side hustle is cleaning cars on the weekend or mowing the lawn. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a character, personality trait to side hustle more so than it is for the money side of things. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. So when you talk about a hustle, let's talk from a hustler's point of view, right? From a hustler's point of view, it doesn't feel like hustle really. When I say that, I don't mean that some of the tasks aren't unenjoyable. Some tasks are absolutely dead to do. For example, we're growing a startup. Some tasks you're just like, man, this is boring, right, to do. You need to do it though, right? So the point of hustling is that most of it doesn't feel like work. The overarching goal resonates with you. It drives you. It often is intertwined with your passion, right? If, for example, Peerr is in line with our passions. If it was something random, I don't think I'd do it. I think I'd try to do it and be like, this is dead, man. It's not working. I'm just going to give up.
So let's talk about how side hustles, do you know what? At this point, I'm going to make it clear. If you are not interested in side hustles or do not care about it, do not watch the video. There is no point.
Leave. You're just going to hate this.
Like my mate says, watch the other videos on this channel, but now it's getting deep. So let's talk about, one, you have to have a certain mindset. You have to be on it to even do a side hustle. Let's say you get up and get going. You know, you got a side hustle in photography, coding, design, or whatever, right? Let's talk about the opportunity. And I like what you said about your side hustles can be in line with your passion and you can get paid to do your passion. Let's talk about the opportunity side hustles can provide. And the example I will give is Ali Abdal. Ali Abdal's side hustle passion was YouTube, content creation, and now he stopped being a medical doctor and it's not become a job, but it's become what he does and he makes money off the back of it, right? Let's talk a bit more about side hustles and opportunities and your thoughts around that.
I think, first of all, side hustling, I don't think you'll nail the first side hustle as being exactly what you want for the next 10 years. You might do a side hustle and then realize, you know what, I don't want to do this for the next 25 years. That's fine, right? But what you said is most important is the skill acquisition that comes with it. What you notice is that, so you've had startups before, you've had little businesses before. you learn so much, and it benefits the next thing that you do, and it benefits the next thing that you do. Peerr, for me, I feel if it was the first thing I did, God forbid, man, it would not survive. It would not survive when you have to do your taxes, when you're growing, when you're having to speak to users, when you're having to deal with payments, when you're dealing with branding, marketing, etc. Now we can only do this so well is because you've learned from all the previous side hustling that you do. And then I think is the diversification gives you the opportunities that you want and that actually match you. So you'll have different opportunities that come to you and you'll take them. My thing is side hustling, have the attitude of saying, again, another guest said this on the podcast, I forgot who, say yes, work it out how later. Yeah. Right? Say yes now, work it out how later. So take him up. And then what you notice is one of them will resonate with you more than the others. Yeah. And then that you just really lean into.
The other thing about side hustles is people may go into make an extra bit of money on the side, but in a weird way, I think a lot of people discover their true passions and purpose through side hustles.
That's true. Do
you see what I mean? Naturally, people do this and they realize, I can do this, then I can do this, and they go on this journey of discovery and exploring lots of different things, and then be like, hey, do you know what? I started a YouTube channel to make money off ads, which comes so much later, a lot later than people realize. But then in the middle of it, they realize that, do you know what? I actually like cinematography and videography. Exactly. And I don't care about churning out YouTube videos every week now. I want to create masterpieces and release them once a month or every few months. You see, you discover so many things from a side hustle, side project, side gig, or whatever you want to call it. If you are interested in side hustles and let's say you can't think of anything, what can you do? What would you do? Let's say you are, some people are a bit scared in the beginning to do a side hustle. What's another alternative you can do?
Join others. So if you don't have a side hustle, and you remember, if you wanna again give birth to a side hustle, there's a lot of hard work that goes into that, and sometimes you don't know how to do it. If you want to learn how to start a side hustle, join someone else. See how they've done it. See what they do. Join them. And don't join them to watch. Join them to do. Help them on their mission. And what you'll actually find is that actually, if you're part of the best time to ever join a side hustle, a side project, a startup, right, is during the earliest phase. Because what you'll find is that you have to do everything. You as a founder, a co-founder, the first core team will have to do everything. You will learn everything. You will be pushed to your limits, right? And what will happen is one of two things. You will either fall in love with the project that you're in and you're going to become amongst the core team that drive it to success, and you will be part of the story, right? Part of the mission. You are part of the accomplishments of that company, that hustle. Or what you do is you learn everything and something else comes out of you. So whilst you're working, you suddenly come across a problem. Say you're coding, you're an engineer, and you've seen that communication is a significant issue amongst teams, and you've had an idea that's been sparked off, and you design something, you use it in your startup or hustle, and you've seen it works, and you want to scale that. You can go.
That's such a common thing. Loads of people, I think Gymshark, I was watching Ben Francis videos, and it's like, when you're working there, you see some of the obstacles their startup itself faces, and then you design a solution, and then you can scale that solution because other startups having the same problem, right? So I think the way they say money breeds money, ideas breed ideas, startups breed startups, it's an ever-ending cycle, right? Once you're on that thing, you can do it.
You know what's also nice about side hustling is the people you join, right? You're not... So a lot of when I'm just using my experience, so it might not be applicable, it might be. When you think about who you're around when you're isolated, just studying, reading books, textbooks, and passing exams, you're not mixing as much. In a side hustle, you're working in society, startups, whatever, you're forced to talk to people. You're forced to be around people. And I think it's that effect of the community, when whoever you're around, how they think, you start to think. How they speak, you start to speak. How they communicate, you start to pick them up. You start to pick up all these skills around the community. And what you find is that you feed off of that energy, right? You feed it and it keeps you going. Say, for example, now you're growing a startup alone. That's hard to do. When you've got people amongst you, that's a different ballgame altogether. So I think, to go back to the question, if you don't have a side hustle, you want to join us and you want one, or you want to learn, or you want to diversify your skills, and you want to make yourself a candidate that stands out in the future, go and join someone else's mission.
100%.
Go and join someone else's mission.
I think side hustles. Saying that, before that, different question. Is there an age limit when you can side hustle? Can you ever be too old to hustle?
Can you be too old? You know what it is though? We have to be honest, right? And it gets more difficult. For example, now we've got everything on a roll now. Scrubbed in podcast. We've got Peerr now going. Although Peerr's been difficult, Peerr's on a roll because we know how to do everything. Say you're starting from scratch. I think to be a first-time hustler, when you've got kids, family, a mortgage, dependents. Say you're looking after your parents. You're the main breadwinner, etc. I think it's incredibly difficult. But that's why you said this. Remember about the podcast, and I think it's the advice you give to a lot of students as well. You say when you've got a project, start it before you start F1.
100%.
Because you've got the ball rolling and you'll commit to it. Why do you give that advice?
I give the advice. This is from experience. I knew a lot of medical students above us, more senior, and they all wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And it was always, and I noticed a trend which was basically a lot of them say, yeah, med school, gonna pass finals, smash it out, etc., etc. And I'm gonna do this passion project on my side hustle startup. Once I graduate, become a doctor, right? And every single one of them never started it, right? And I realized that it was the workload, the weekends, the nights, the on-calls. They were more tired. They never used to come out to chill, whatever. And I realized when you start up something, it's very difficult, time intensive. You not a lot of freedom to be able to move around and operate, right? And when you're a junior doctor, it becomes even more difficult. But what I saw was the people that started the side hustles or the projects or the charities before they graduated, most often than not, they used to continue doing it while working and growing even more because they were committed. They already had started. They had a degree of accountability. If you never start anything, no one's holding you to account, right? There's no reason to release a podcast episode weekly, right? So our thing was different, but we still had Medigate before we graduated med school. And my big thing is if you're going to do something, do it before you graduate. One, you don't realize how much time you have as a medical student compared to a junior doctor. And I know for the people that are listening, they're in their shoes, they're like, nah, you can't be true, right? And once you're committed, once you've done something, there's a degree of accountability. And I think the other thing that you should always try to do is always do with a co-founder. I think the ideal team, or whatever the stats show, is the ideal co-founding team is 2 to 3 people due to skill set, accountability, all the other stuff, right? But yeah, I stand by, if you have a side hustle, if you want to do something, do it before you graduate. Because once you graduate, the motivation, the drive is going to be very difficult, and you're always going to let yourself off. Oh, I'll do it next week. And we know what happens when you say that, you never get around to it. But saying that, the original question I posed was, I still do think you can have a side hustle at a certain age. There's no age limit. You know, look at the KFC guy. He did it when he was 76, right? I agree in the sense that it does become difficult. We know it becomes difficult after you're married, after you have children, after you have to look after family, if you're looking after your parents, if there's more people in your family, right? But a lot of successful companies started people later in their career, right?
I think the average successful founder or something like that is in their 40s or something.
The 40s, and then they become an average age for millionaires 57. It's all later on in life.
You know the number down to the T, 57, all right?
They have 7 sources of income, right? But side hustles is not age defined, but it is easier to do it early on in your career when you have no responsibilities, like you said. But a lot of companies and a lot of side hustles,
you know what, you can fail. You can afford to fail when that's the biggest thing. I think when you've got no responsibility, when you've got nothing, at that moment of time, fail, man. It's okay.
I think that's a better way of putting it.
I think that's what you're trying to say. So, and you know what? You learn a lot from your failures. And you know what I love about the entrepreneurship world, about the side hustling world? It's not like the academic world where if you fail, the doors close. There's a qualification that you don't get, or a job that you're not going to get.
Kicked out the course or something.
In side hustling, you fail, you get back up, dust yourself off, and you do it better.
To be fair, it's rated. In a weird way, it's very rare for people to become very famous or do well with the first side hustles, you know, Facebook, Amazon, whatever, right? Even Amazon failed. It was like a dog thing before that anyway, right? But when it's like a badge of honor in a weird way, you need to have a few failures under your belt to know what you're dealing with. 100%. Because imagine you have a big startup and then it fails. You are in a big of a pickle. If you don't know how to fail, do you know what? Learn to fail and learn early on. That's the best thing. Learn to fail, learn early on, and then the rest will be fine. Learn to fail fast, keep moving, keep growing. But our stance is, we believe medical students and anyone if they have the ability to side hustle, and it's not for the money, it's not for, you know, the things that come with it, I think it equips you for the future. It career proofs you. It gives you acquisition of skills that will help you in other things.
Does it give more meaning? More meaning to what you do?
Yeah, that's that thing, right? Remember we had this discussion. When you have a side hustle, do you enjoy your day job? I think when we were doing scrubbing, when we were doing all the other various things, because I was so happy from it, I was so content, I was excited by it, the difficulties and the frustrations of my day-to-day job didn't hit me as much because I had something to look forward to. I was more happier, right?
Yes.
Happiness is like, it's holistic. It's from a source of things, right?
Yeah.
You can't like be happy 9 to 5. Like, you know, do you know what I mean, right?
So do you think then there's a lot of miserable energy in healthcare, and I often find that all of their eggs are in one basket.
Yeah.
All of the eggs are in one basket. Do you think then side hustling can actually give you that dimension of happiness, in the sense that you're not just miserable because say your day job. So for example, I'll give you my example. I'll give you my personal example, right? So you might be at work and you might have an absolutely horrible time, right? You're the only doctor, maybe covering several wards. It's a busy day. People are sick. You're making multiple calls. Maybe someone shouts at you, etc., etc. If you go home, you're just like, oh, damn, what a crap day I've had. I find that when having these projects and everything going on, I have to edit, I have to design, I have to do this and that and the other. It just moves you on. I feel like it just moves you on. And the side hustle, obviously, sometimes it should be in line with your interests. So I think it not only just moves you on, it just makes you it sort of perks you up again. You're happy again. You're doing something you love. It is stressful, but you're just happier doing things. And I think it just keeps you moving rather than just in a state of misery. What do you think?
So with that one, it's a bit of an odd one because it's essentially saying, should healthcare professionals or doctors also have a side hustle? Despite us highly recommending it and highly encouraging it, at the same time, I do sometimes think if they do have side hustles, they might become even more miserable because it might not be for them.
I know what I'm trying to say. It's not hustle. Have something that you love doing and do that. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think that's different. So yeah, so you're right. I guess hustling is my thing. Yeah. And the thing I like. So if you so fine then. So if you're a footballer, if you're a tennis player, if you're a photographer, I think you should be investing time into doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if you were to say, do I think healthcare professionals would be happier, or it will reduce the burden of the frustrations of the job with the salary, the burnout, whatever, right? Because they have a passion or side project, I agree. Because that's one less thing you're attributing happiness to.
Yes. It's not all in one thing.
Right. And you will have something to look forward to. It will take your minds off things. It's de-stress, it's motivating, it's all of that stuff, right? I agree. Having something, a hustle or something on the side, will increase your overall happiness, and hopefully that relays into your work. Yeah, I agree with that 110%.
All right, so let's look to wrap up now. What I want you to finish with is telling the world 3 skills that you think your side hustles, the 3 top skills that you think side hustles offered you and will offer other people. And then I guess let's finish off with the last thing, which we've already covered, but just let them know again how they can enter the world of hustling.
Sure. So it's a difficult one on the spot, but the 3 things that I think are applicable for all side hustles is, one is communication. Learning how to communicate with other people in a way that's different to what you're typically taught in medical school or university. Because sometimes you're selling something, you're selling a product, you're selling yourself. I think rejection and failure, I think as humans in society, you will face rejection and failure from everything, your career, your life, your relationships, everything, right? Side hustles or side gigs or whatever you want to call it teaches you that failure, accepting it, being able to move on. That's the part that comes with it. And I think optimism and looking forward to a brighter future. I think when you have a side hustle, side project, when you're looking to achieve something, when you do something, it puts that positive mindset.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, they always tend to focus on the negative. This didn't work out for me. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the promotion. Whereas side hustle, you're like, I'm not making any money today. I'm not getting any customers. No one's coming to my project. No one's coming to my event. But you have that optimism, right? That positivity, like one day it's going to happen. What if? Do you see?
Yeah.
And I think that's a very good thing to have in life for everything you do. Those are the things I think you can learn from hustling, side hustles. But how do you even get there? What tips or advice would you give to people or medical students that want to have a side hustle, that want to start hustling?
So I think the first thing, if you want to hustle, I think again, so let's start off with, I always say map down on paper what you want to do, or what interests do you have. And I think either you can think about creating, if it's in you to create, then start it off from scratch. Watch YouTube videos, ask people, message people on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you get a logo? How do you market? How do you brand? How do you get yourself out there? Get yourself in meetings with people. I think, so that's one thing you could actually start from scratch. I think after that is put out your interests. There's loads of things out there going on right now. There's loads of projects going on there. Just message the founder. Message the founder or a team member and say, these are my skills, can I get involved? 100%. Offer your skills to them. Offer what you do to join them. And what you'll find is that you get to exercise, you'll get better at it, you'll join their mission, you might fall in love with their mission, as we said before, you might form something from that mission yourself. So obviously those are two things. Write it down, write what your interests are, find projects that are in line with that and join them, or otherwise look to start up. But when you start up something, ask for advice, learn from others before you just quickly dive in.
I think I don't know if it's regret or whatever, but I think the one thing I would have liked to have done is, before doing our stuff, it would have been nice to work in someone else's startup, to learn from them, to understand it, to understand structure. There's a lot of things we're doing now as a startup that I think would have been easier if we worked for someone else and saw how they did it.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And I think if you're not, obviously some hustles you just have to do it yourself when you're willing to do it yourself. But if you're on the edge, on the fence, but you're curious about it, join someone else's hustle, learn from them, and then you realize, can I do this? Can I not? Can I see a future of me doing this on the side?
Yeah, I think in the world of entrepreneurship, you'll never get away from problems. Problems, you're just gonna face them one after another, and it's just about solving.
This is probably a different thing or a different video of entrepreneurship and side hustles. I don't think, maybe it is the same thing, but I see entrepreneurship as a bit more further down the line from a side hustle.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Side hustle is the thing you do on the side, maybe on the weekend, in the evening, you got a little takeaway, like you got little Friday night shop selling burgers. Yeah, do you see? Multiple side hustles, right? And a lot of people do, right? And those side hustles becomes passive incomes, right? Yeah. Whereas entrepreneurship, or like more genuine entrepreneurship, is maybe less side hustling, more like product, service, problem, solution.
It's almost a blueprint.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we're wrong and we're naive about side hustle entrepreneurship, but in my head, I see them as two distinct things. But one leads to another.
Well, exactly. And I think we'll talk about that in another video. So side hustling. You've heard our opinions on side hustling. Let us know in the comments below what your opinion is. Should medical students in particular, but if you're a student in any other discipline, are you hustling? Why are you hustling? And if you're not hustling, why are you also not hustling? Let us know. And we'll see you in the next episode.